What is up, everybody? We are back. We are 20 days out from the college basketball season. Welcome to the Run Pure Sports College Basketball Preview Show. We've done the Big 12, we've done the Pac-12, we've done the ACC so far. You can find those on YouTube or in podcast streams. We're here tonight to talk about everything Big Ten, conference of the regular season, not so much the tournament in the last couple of years. I'll bring in Gavin first. What's up, man?
What's going on? Yeah, it should be a fun show because who doesn't love just taking a dump on the Big Ten? In 2021, they were the best conference in the country with a bullet, the Luka Io year. Now they're at a similar position preseason that they finished last season as the third best conference. And their highest rated team is the 12th best team in the country so far. So we'll see. I can't wait to crap on some of these teams.
And, we got to bring in our resident Big Ten guy. We got Turtle, Alex Harden here from Roto Grinders. How's your summer been, man?
It's been good. Ready for college basketball. Pick back up. Big Ten is super uninspiring this year. I will join the group in shitting on it. My Terps as well. There's some pretty bad rosters, I think. Some teams maybe have a little bit of upside, but really not much. They're not really in the national conversation, really, the conference as a whole. So it'd be kind of gross, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, I feel like this conference has got a bunch of top heavy players, but not very many deep teams. So Turtle does all the college basketball stuff over at Roto Grinders. Check him out over there. Also does college football, soccer. Anything else you do right now? Tennis, yeah. All the niche sports.
Some F1 projections, so a lot of different things.
Yeah, check him out over there at RG. Does an awesome job. Well, let's dive right in since this is a big conference. Illinois is our first team here. Went 23-10 last year. Finished 20th at KenPom. KenPom's got him 33rd to start the year. Torvik's got him 13th, so a little bit of a discrepancy there. They have a ton of losses here, Gavin. Kofi Coburn, Trent Frazier, Jacob Grandison is gone. Curbello's at St. John's. DeMonte Williams. It's basically their starting five from last year. It is their starting five from last year. They bring in a couple top 50 recruits and a couple interesting transfers. TJ Shannon from Texas Tech, Matt Mayer from Baylor. What do you think about the offseason for Illinois with all the turnover?
Yeah, you lose your top five scorers. You lose 10 scholarship players, 86% of points and 81% of minutes. Not to mention, without Kofi, this team is going to look way different, right? It was kind of four shooters just circling Kofi all game, Plummer, Frazier, etc. It's going to, be much more of a positionless size team this year. They got a lot of rangy wings that can play on both sides of the ball extremely well. And Coleman Hawkins, when he was given an extended role last year during Kofi's absence, he had some huge games. So there's a lot of pieces here to like. Probably they get slow starting just with integrating all these pieces, but it's Brad Underwood too at the same time. Maybe the best coach in the conference outside of, Tom Izzo. So I tend to trust Brad Underwood in this spot. I think Illinois is going to be the Big Ten title winners this year.
Oh, man. All right. Turtle, what do you think about the offseason moves here? They obviously lose a lot, but it seems like they're bringing a lot of high-level talent in and a couple players that, we've tried to play, from the Big 12 in Shannon and Mayer. What do you think about those guys and the offseason overall?
So considering where this team could have been, I think they did an amazing job rebuilding the roster. And it might be crazy to say, but I think this team actually has a higher ceiling than last year's team. Like when you have a guy like Kofi, you're like kind of forced into playing a certain way. Like Gavin alluded to, there's a lot of positionless basketball. This team could be ridiculous on the wing defensively, in my opinion, with Mayer and Hawkins and Shannon. Like I think this team's better than they were last year, like top down. I do agree it could be a slow start, but I really like this team. They're definitely a top two team with me. I think they could push Indiana for sure. The wild card really is Sky Clark, their top recruit. He's coming off an ACL tear. ACL tears aren't as big of a deal these days with modern medicine. Mm-hmm. But like he's a 6'3" guard, big time scorer. Like I want to see how he integrates in the system. And like I want to see, is Mayer going to be the same guy in Baylor, or is he going to take more of a lead role and carry more of the load offensively? Something I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think, they're just going to have to play Clark big minutes kind of out of the gate. He seems to be the main true point guard on the team, Gavin. I know we've liked Hawkins in the past. We've liked Mayer in the past. We've liked TJ Shannon in the past. These are all guys who've been under 25 minutes basically in their whole career, but with really good rates, especially Mayer, 0.95 fantasy points per minute. What do you think about, the wings on this team? Do you think we see all those guys get significant minutes bumps here?
Yeah, one thing about Underwood too. I mean, dude, you saw Alonzo Plummer come in and look all world. I mean, he's a big player empowerment guy, and he instills a lot of confidence within his players. And this, I think, is going to be a much better fit for both Mayer and Shannon. I mean, these guys are legit top-end talents in the country, not even in the conference. I mean, these are great players who've just been underutilized in the past. And if Underwood can push the right buttons, man, like it's definitely the scariest wing tandem in the conference. Like it's up there in the country too. So I just really love this team. Turtle kind of hit it on the head with like Sky Clark. I mean, yeah, you're putting a lot on him, but a lot of that responsibility is alleviated having someone like a Terry Shannon or even a Matt Mayer who can play point forward in the right scenario. So I don't know if it's as big of an issue. I think he definitely helps the ceiling because from what I read, he was kind of widely considered the number 2 point guard pre-ACL. So I think this team just has crazy upside. And I think Brad Underwood has a lot of different ways that he can deploy these lineups.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are the same page because this is the team that I really liked. And when I saw Ken Pom have him at 33, I was like, that seems way too low. At least for the ceiling.
That's 7th in the Big Ten by Ken Pom, just by the way, behind Michigan State. Okay.
There's just no fucking way they're the 7th best team. So this team also brings in Ty Rodgers, freshman. Underwood said that it's going to be hard to keep him off the floor. I don't really see him having a big role just because it seems like he's going to be playing the same stuff as Mayer, Hawkins, Shannon, Turtle. Any last thoughts on Illinois here?
2 things. Well, I even if Mayer and those guys play like 30 minutes, like Rodgers could have a 20-minute per game role. He's a pretty versatile 6'6" wing, play some defense. Last point is I don't know how much confidence Underwood had to instill in Plummer. He's never been lacking for confidence. The Plummer,
he's always shot it.
He's been laying pipe for a half
fair.
decade.
Okay.
But yeah.
For a half decade. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's move to Indiana, who is the preseason favorite, at least in the coaches poll. This team was 21-14 last season, ended 48th at Ken Pom. Torvik's got them 28th to start the season. Ken Pom 12th. So expecting a huge jump. This team, I mean, Turtle is a big loss. Rob Finney gone. Christian Lander gone. Parker Stewart gone. Obviously kidding.
Oh no, what are they going to do without Parker Stewart?
I know.
I mean, he was the only high volume, reliable 3-point shooter for him last year. Well, I guess XJ shot 38%, but he's not doing that again.
That was their issue.
You just took 2 of my bullet points on Indiana, but yeah.
Yeah. So this team brings in Jalen Hood-Schifino, top 25 combo guard, a couple other recruits, and then they had, I believe they had a guy who redshirted last year. Turtle, we'll start with you. What do you think about the offseason for Indiana? They don't lose much.
It's kind of ho-hum. They actually got the only 5-star freshmen in the Big Ten recruits, 2 of them, Malik, according to Rivals, Malik Renault, 6'9" forward, who won't play as much, but Jalen Hood-Schifino should come in and have a pretty good role immediately. The knock on him is that he wasn't a great shooter, which doesn't really alleviate their main issue where they don't have a perimeter presence. But I did see him. I watched some of the Jordan Brand Classic. He knocked down 3 threes in that game, so maybe there is some hope. But he's more of just like a good passer, can help facilitate the offense. But this team's going to be TJD centric for sure. And then obviously getting Race back is huge as well. And from a DFS perspective, he seems to go overlooked and underpriced. And he's always that pretty interesting pivot in like the 6,200 range on most slates. Yeah.
So Gavin, this team's going to look a lot like it did last year with, I think they're replacing some replacement level talent with some high level talent, especially Hood-Schifino. We get year 2 of Tamar Bates, who was a top 30 guy last year, who, I think, is going to ascend a bit here. What do you think overall about the team, and does anything stand out to you here?
Yeah, the thing with this team is, you can certainly see why on paper a lot of people have them first in the conference. I think the floor is extremely high with this team. Like, I have a really hard time seeing where they don't finish in the top 3, barring catastrophic like cluster injuries. Race and TJD are going to provide that floor, for them. I mean, I saw some idiot on Twitter say that TJD was overrated, right? 13-8, 19-9, 18-8, his 3 seasons in college basketball. If that's overrated, coaches want more overrated players then. But I mean, Xavier Johnson, he had an unbelievable year, shooting 38%. I doubt he does it again, but Jim Root brings up a point on the 3-man weave where Indiana was plus 22 points better when he was on the floor versus off. And,
wow,
Hood-Schifino should help alleviate some of those concerns. But my rub with this team is, like, they lost 7 of their last 9 conference games before making the Big Ten semis and squeaking out a 12 seed, right? That was the first year Indiana had made the NCAA tournament since 2016, and as a 12 seed. And we just want this team to turn around and just be, the world beaters of the conference. Like, that's a big jump. It was Archie Miller a lot of those years versus Mike Woodson, and this team is still going to be nasty on the defensive end. I don't know if it has the upside of the defensive end in terms of, like, in Illinois or maybe even a Rutgers might be one of the best defensive teams in the conference. But if they're going to make their threes, they're going to probably run away with the conference. I don't know who's going to make them, though. You got kind of some interesting holes to fill, but like someone like a Tamar Bates provides a lot of upside for him. We didn't get to see a lot in his role last year. But, do you leave it up to Miller Kopp? Like, I don't know if you want Miller Kopp playing 25 minutes a game again for a potential top 10 team that's threatening a 1 seed, come March.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Turtle, and the roster around the top 3, I guess, let's say?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm hoping Bates beats out Kopp for that small forward job, but I kind of think it's going to be Kopp starting. It's going to be split like 25-15, but hopefully Bates kind of has a good camp and works his way in there, because I think they need him to realize their upside. It'd be an interesting team. I mean, they have one of like the lockdown guys that you have to consider every DFS slate, and you can't say that about many other teams in this conference. So There's only so high you can price a player, and I think we're going to be playing a lot of Trace Jackson Davis this year. But the interesting thing is, like, Hood-Schifino, like, is he going to come out and be like a 3,500 guy, or is he going to be like a 6,500? We don't really know. So it should be an interesting team, but they're going to be on they're going to have a lot of relevancy in DFS slates this year, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hood-Schifino steps right into a meaningful role. So, if the price is right, I can see us using him early and, just hoping that, he gets the 25 to 30 minutes that we think he will. A couple last notes. The last 10 games, Gavin, Xavier Johnson played a lot more. I think he had, 11 straight double-digit scoring games down the stretch. He averages a hair under 28 minutes a game on the season. I think that's more foul driven. I feel like he has a bunch of games where he fouls, especially early. So I think that he's going to be awesome. And then in the first year under Woodson, they paced up a bunch. They were 284 the prior season. They were 175 last year. So that's something to note, especially with a team that has a lot of pieces that we're going to want to use. Any last thoughts on Indiana here, Gavin?
Yeah, you bring up Xavier Johnson. It's like, dude, when you get into March and you're in a 1-game elimination scenario, holy shit. Xavier Johnson can win you the game as quickly as he can foul out, double technical, go ape shit, and lose you the game. Like, he's a high variance guy. Obviously great ceiling, but they need consistency from him this year, first and foremost. Like, if he's not going to be a consistent piece and he's going to be the up and down kind of guy he's been the last couple of years, then they're definitely not going to be a top 10 team. And they're probably going to be, looking up at 1 or 2 others ahead of them in the Big Ten.
Yep. Any last thoughts on Indiana here, Turtle?
Yeah, that in Mike Woodson's team auto bench, they're one of the worst teams in the country for that. So XJ may not have a super high foul rate, but he'll lose a lot of chunks in the first half if he picks up too early. So just be aware of that.
God, PTSD right away.
That's the one thing I don't miss about college basketball in the offseason is dealing with the 2-foul auto bench. But.
Yeah, they played around with the 6 fouls in the NIT last year. I think it's on the table for next season. So
it'd be so much better.
See. I know. And they might do like a 3 per half thing too. So, but that's for next year's pod. Let's go to Iowa here. 26-10. Super surprising team last year because of one guy. They end up 13th at Ken Pom. Torvik's got them 36 to start the year. Ken Pom 23rd to start the year. Probably a touch high, I think. Key losses, Gavin, Keegan Murray, Jordan Bohannon. They don't bring in really anyone. So he's going to roll out the same team and hope that his brother is pretty damn good. What do you think about the losses here, Gavin?
Yeah, Keegan Murray. Holy shit, dude. 131.2 O rating last year. Okay.
Wow.
That's the highest ever charted in the Ken Pom era since 2004. Just to give you some context, Edey was the second closest to him at 122.6. Okay. That's almost like 10 points. The next closest in the history of Ken Pom is Zion at 129. Okay. Like, even for as much as we saw kind of the Keegan breakout coming, nobody expected that. Right. And it's going to be another theme that we discussed with a team much further along in the show, but I feel like one guy covered up a lot of issues for this team. And, you know, when Keegan Murray was going, you could just dump the ball to him and he has a 131 O rating and he's going to score 25 to 30. It takes a lot of concerns off of the team. And I'm going to be in the minority and saying, look, Chris Murray is not a 1-for-1 swap for him. Definitely not to the extent of what Keegan. I don't think there's any spectrum of outcomes where he puts up a similar season to Keegan. Can he put up a productive one and be first team all conference? I think so. But like, you know, now you're talking about a backcourt of Ulis, Sanford, and Perkins. Like, oh God. And then the McCaffrey brothers, like, this team kind of sucks, honestly. Like, I'm really down on this team. I don't know if they're going to be this good. And if you do think that they're good, I think you're putting a ton on Chris Murray's shoulders.
Yeah, right out of the gate too. Turtle, what do you think about that? The depth of the team behind Chris Murray. And then how do you think he steps in? 1.14 fantasy point per minute, but more of in a bench, 15 to 20 minute role. Definitely going to play a lot more this year.
Yeah, I almost fell out of my chair yesterday when I checked Evan Maya's rankings and he had him 11th. Yeah. I don't know about the math on that one, but definitely not a 1-for-1 swap. But Chris Murray is pretty good. Like, he had almost a 120 O rating last year. Like, definitely not a 1-for-1, but it's a little bit different when you're not playing on a team that has Keegan Murray. So you may lose some efficiency. He's still going to be super DFS relevant because I don't see how he doesn't have production on this team. Like, yeah, the roster is not great. Like,
he's going to crush for us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I care about the most. But in terms of like thinking Iowa's a good team, like, not for me this year. They didn't really add anybody inspiring. I don't really, there's not much upside in this team. I see just like lots of downside, especially based on where all of the numbers are putting this team. Yeah,
same. I mean, I was talking with Gavin yesterday. I think there are a couple teams in this conference that are one injury away from just being really, really bad. Like, if Chris Murray has to miss any sort of time, Gavin, this team is in deep shit. What do you think about the rest of the roster? They've got the McCaffrey guys back for. I couldn't believe Connor was coming back. My note on here is that
what else is he going to do? Like, the job at the gas station can wait another year.
No, hold the clipboard for his dad on the sideline.
Yeah, hold the clipboard. Yeah. My note here is that he invented wind sprinting like 7 years ago. But no, so let's talk about the younger guys. Sanford, I think, is interesting. Tony Perkins. Gavin, what do you think about those two guys?
I think out of the three, I kind of like Perkins the most. I think he has the most burst out of them. And for a team that's going to be quite flat-footed and lacking a lot of foot speed, they're definitely going to need that, especially without a Keegan and not having the Joe Toussaint off the bench to come in and be that kind of spark plug. Now, Getting Rabracha back is I think bigger than people think. But at this point, it's like you almost just have to kind of blindly believe that the offense is at least going to be pretty good to maybe even better than that with Fran McCaffrey. He's going to figure it out one way or the other. It's not like losing Bohannon is the end of the world. Like, God, he was fucking terrible in some games and in many games over his 8 years. So it's not like he's impossible to replace, and I trust that McCaffrey will have the offense going. The problem, I think, for this team really lies on the defensive end. And Perkins, I think, is probably the best perimeter stopper. So, yeah, the supporting cast is kind of lacking, I think, obviously for sure when you're relying on the McCaffrey brothers. But yeah, I think this team is like much closer to what I have. I have Rutgers at 7th. I think they're much closer to Rutgers at 7th than Ohio State at 5.
Yeah, I think Rutgers is better than this team. Turtle, for DFS, we saw them basically play this massive rotation outside of Keegan last year. I don't really see that changing much. What do you think about that and like the relevancy of these non-Chris Murray guys for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think someone like Sanford can become DFS relevant if he gets consistent minutes. I think I have him as like a 0.9 kind of guy. So if he's a guy playing upper 20s into 30, like he could be relevant on a lot of slates. But yeah, it's going to be really a lot of Chris Murray early and just kind of see how things play out with the rotation. Because like, are they going to play like 5 or 6 guards and like everyone's capped at 24 minutes again? If they're going to do that, I'm not very interested. But if Tony Perkins is playing 30 minutes a game, he's probably going to have some pretty good outputs. And so definitely just a team to watch, knowing that Murray is going to be the lead source of production. But there's some pieces to keep an eye on.
Yeah. I think it's Murray right out of the gate, and then we'll keep the light on for Perkins and Sanford and monitor their minutes. Let's move on to the Terps. Both my parents went to Maryland. Turtle's a Maryland guy. He's got the background. We'll definitely go to him first. 15 and 17 last year, though. 83rd at KenPom. Torvik and KenPom both have him in the low 50s to start this season. Lots of turnover. They lose Fats Russell, Ayala. Wahab is gone. But they bring
Did he go back to Georgetown?
He went back to Georgetown. Yeah.
They were so good last year, he missed them and wanted to go back. Oh, God.
It's on a 1-year contract, I guess.
Yeah. But they bring in they
traded him for Don Carey.
They traded Wahab for Don Carey. And they bring in
both losers in that trade.
Jameer Young from Charlotte, who I think is interesting. What do you think about what do you think about last season, how that went, and then the addition of Jameer Young here?
I think the fan base, they're a bunch of giant asshats for pushing Turgeon out when they did. Like, they made it almost impossible for him to stay. Like, people were harassing his family. Like, not cool how that all went down. But, I mean, it was probably at the end of the road for him anyway, and it just needs kind of a rebuild. I mean, this is going to be a lost season for them, I think. Like, I don't have much faith that they're going to do anything. They have some interesting pieces in like Julian Reese, a young guy who's going to be there for the next few years. And Jameer Young could have some big games. I'm kind of interested to see how much he takes charge of the team. He'll be the primary ball handler. I just think in terms of what they're returning, they have some veteran leadership back, which might give them a bit of a floor. But I'm just not expecting much out of them. We've seen plenty of Donta Scott to know he's not a world beater. But
hey, he lost 20 pounds in the offseason.
I mean, yeah.
And he's going to find it, the first week of Christmas break when he's back with his family. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I don't feel good about this team. Like, am I just being like a reverse homer, or?
I think they have interesting pieces. I just don't see how they are that much better than last year. Right. I think that the initial ranking that KenPom and Torvik have is kind of right. 50, 60 range seems kind of right. What do you think about that, Gavin, and the turnover, losing Fats and Ayala, who was way better than I thought he was going to be last year? Actually, won me my first Tourney Mania seat.
Yeah, Fats is interesting to think about. Like, you look at Fats versus Jameer, you're looking at very offensive-minded point guards who put up a ton of statistical production in mid-majors who can't play defense for their life, That being said, I kind of like this starting 5. Now, after the starting 5, Brother, it is third world ugly after the starting five. Okay, this is a team, one injury, and they're really bad. But
yeah,
Donta Scott at the 4, or even potentially small ball 5, I think could be an interesting mismatch. Now, what it does for you defensively and rebounding wise is going to be less than ideal, but you hope that Hakeem Hart takes a big step forward, definitely on the offensive end. Now, he's not going to be, the guy that Ayala was last year or that Wiggins was the previous year, but I don't think you really need him to be that. You got a great mix of guards here with Young, Carey, and Hart being kind of a wing guy. And Julian Reese, huh?
I like the front court.
Julian Reese, this is going to be your Big Ten breakout player of the year. I'm not going to take some like chicken shit. I'm going to pick Chris Murray because Chris Murray had like 9 and 6 in 17 minutes. That's not a breakout. He's already half broken out. This is a breakout. In 17 minutes last game, was only at 5 and 4, had an extremely high foul rate, but is going to be really crucial for this team, I think. He has to keep his hands in his pockets and stay on the floor. But he's a guy who was able to stretch it and hit a 3 or 2 in spots, and you hope he takes a jump in that realm, but is more of kind of like an old school defensive-minded guy who's kind of going to beat the shit out of you down low, but that's also why he picks up a lot of fouls. I think like this guy could be a really underrated defensive stopper in a conference where you're going to need him with all the big men that they do have. So I really like Julian Reese this year. And it takes a little bit of projection, but I think breakout player of the year for me in the conference.
Yeah, spoiler alert, that's one of our last segments later. I have him on my list as well. Turtle, I had him circled as a guy who's going to make a big jump. And my other note was, this team played a bunch of guys a ton of minutes last year. And that kind of dovetails with what Gavin said about the bench being shitty. I think that's how they become relevant for us is, you see Dante Scott playing 34 minutes a game or Jameer Young just playing the whole game, Reese 28 plus. What do you think about that? And any last thoughts on Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, that's my DFS note that I don't see depth on this team at all. And like the starters could log huge minutes. So especially early in the season, we could see a lot of value on them because there's just no, like, how do they not play like 30 plus? Like,
yeah. Ian Martinez is their sixth man.
They just need to run the Mark Schmidt, St. Bonnie's minute allocation.
Yeah, I mean that's how they become relevant for us, and I think that's how they win games.
How was Kevin Willard at Seton Hall? Like he didn't play a super deep bench, did he? I don't think so.
God, think about how many friggin' injuries they had to deal with over the last 2 years, though. Like, oh man, I think it's part of it.
Yeah, no. So I think that's the main thing here. Gavin, any last thoughts on Maryland?
No, I don't know if they'll be as bad as some people think in terms of like one of the last 3 teams in the conference. I think they got a little more ceiling for that, but yeah, if injuries hit this team, they could be in a really bad spot.
Yeah, this team's effed if they get any injuries. All right, let's move on to Michigan. 19 and 15 last year, 27th at Ken Pom. Both Torvik and Ken Pom have them starting the year right around that range. This team loses a bunch of key pieces from last year. Eli Brooks, Devontae Jones, Frankie Collins, I think is a massive loss for them. Diabate's gone and Caleb Houston. They bring in a really good recruiting class, number 10 overall, Turtle. They've got Howard's kid, Jet, who I think is going to start. They got a couple other top 100 guys as well. And they bring in for the third year in a row an up transfer at point guard, Jalen Llewellyn from Princeton. What do you think about the offseason? Lots of losses here.
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty solid. I mean, they're obviously going to miss Diabate and Houston. Kobe Buffkin's the only guy left from last year's class, and he really didn't do too much. He's likely to start at the 2, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. I think Llewellyn could be a solid guy. Like he definitely didn't belong in like a Princeton offense. So I think he'll be able to showcase his skill set a bit more here. So I think he'll be pretty solid in terms of like DFS. He'll probably come in a bit overpriced because he'll be priced up well with all of his Princeton stats. So be something to keep an eye on. I kind of like the recruiting class. Terrace Reed, the 6'10" big man. He's like super raw and physical. I was watching some YouTube clips of him. Like if there's a way to bet on like fouls, offensive fouls committed per 40, like I would like put my house on that, because dude is just going to run people over and get called for so many fouls. But
Julius Marble left the conference, so he can lead the conference, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's like minus 500 to lead the conference in that stat. But he looked pretty promising. Like he has a face-up game, which is going to lead into those offensive fouls at the college level, because in high school, he's just like getting by guys, no problem. But once he initiates some contact here, he's just going to get called for fouls all over the place. But he looks pretty promising, especially long-term after this year, after Dickinson's eventually gone. Jet Howard, yeah, he's getting some good reviews. I think he'll probably start on the wing. He's a scorer. They'll definitely need that from the perimeter. Their other big recruit is Doug McDaniel, spelled D-U-G. So bonus
love
points
that.
there. You do love that, but he's a 5'11" point guard, so you immediately hate him because he's just a little tot. So
hey, I came around on what's his name in the Big 12?
Mike Smith.
Yeah. So despite your disrespect of him, I think he'll have a decent role. They have 3 pretty decent top 100 freshmen, so they retooled a bit. My big question is, how much is Joey Baker going to be playing on this team?
Hopefully not that much. No, Gavin, he was talking about Marquise Noel. Definitely came around on him. God, that guy's good. Gavin, what do you think about their offseason? I think they're in the bucket for me where like I have them ahead of a team like Iowa just because of the unknown, right? Like we know that all the guys on Iowa or like a team like Penn State are average. I think there's upside here with just the talent. And, we've been talking about it for a couple of minutes. We haven't mentioned Hunter Dickinson, second player of the year, national player of the year candidate. Thoughts overall here?
Yeah, 100% national player of the year candidate. Should be a stone lock with a bullet. First team all conference, could be conference player of the year. The thing, we talk about the losses. Okay, Caleb Houston, like. First of all, I have Caleb Houston PTSD with Jet Howard. If Jet Howard is Caleb Houston, these guys are dead. So we can just chuck him in the trash right away. Like Caleb Houston was dog. Now you lose Moussa Diabate, but I always felt that Diabate was such a shit fit next to Dickinson. Like that was part of their issue last year.
It was an odd fit, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you really dig down into their issues, you talk about like they were 11th in the conference in defense and outside the top 300 in ball screen defense, like miserable. Okay, Eli Brooks and Devontae Jones, you thought you would have had that under wraps. So, so like, are we really losing that much with Eli Brooks? He's steady, but okay, I don't know if they really lost as much as people are making it to believe, but I also like the guys, especially coming back. Terrence Williams.
Oh, this was the guy
This was the guy probably juggled with the most with Reese for breakout player. And here's kind of, he missed 3 games for COVID, sprained ankle, and then he got suspended for the Wisconsin incident, right? He started 1 game against Ohio State when Dickinson was out. He went for 17 and 3 in 25 minutes while playing through foul trouble, okay? He definitely needs to pick up the rebounding if he's going to play kind of the 4, which I think is what he slots in at. 3 or 4, they're going to play that kind of similar 2-wing deal that Illinois is going to run. If he wants to be a true impact guy, but he shot 38.5% from 3 with good defensive chops. He's got athleticism, and he fits much, 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 much better alongside Dickinson than Diabate did. You also got shower narrative with him and Dickinson being, I think, like childhood friends too. So I really like Terrence Williams too in this spot. And part of is the reason why I see Michigan finishing 3rd, not having the night-to-night consistency that Indiana is going to bring you, but battling with Purdue for that 3rd spot, probably edging Purdue out because I like the wings a little bit more than what Purdue has.
Yeah, I agree. I like the upside here, Turtle. Why don't you talk about Williams as well here and Dickinson a bit? We saw him go from like a 26, 28-minute guy to a 32.3 last year. And when you're as productive as he is within your minutes, that is just huge. Awesome. Also saw him shoot some threes last year. What do you think there?
Yeah, I think Dickinson's going to keep on shooting more threes because I think probably the feedback he got was that he needs to develop a game further than like 5 feet from the rim to have success at the next level. So I think we should expect to see that. Yeah, he's going to have a great year. He's super solid. Terrence Williams, the guy I did not mention because I was using him as my breakout guy last year. So I think we're on the same page, Gavin, with that. He's just like a 6'7", like do it all type, a lot different of a player, obviously, than Diabate. I think it's a great fit. And he'll do a lot of different things across this and put together some pretty well-rounded stat lines. So I'm excited to see him play and hopefully kind of maintain a large role throughout the season.
Yep. Interesting note. Hunter Dickinson, higher 3-point percentage than Matthew Mayer. Gavin, any last thoughts here on Michigan before we move on to State?
Yeah, they got a lot of young guys, and they're going to get tested early. They play at home versus Virginia. They play Kentucky in London, and then they play a semi-neutral versus UNC in Charlotte. So they're going to get put to the screws early.
Yeah, 0-3 right there.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I didn't really hit on Llewellyn enough, right? The Ivy is never going to run a pro-style ball screen pick and roll heavy type offense. They're just going to keep kicking it around until some 5'8" little white kid is going to shoot it in the corner wide open. Like, now Llewellyn is a ball screen wizard from everything that I've read. Like, this guy can get downhill. He's a 3-level scorer. I think he brings way more upside than a Mike Smith ever did. And I think this is a much better up transfer for him, who is probably an impact guy. 1,000-point career scorer. I think Llewellyn's probably at worst one of the top 5 point guards in the conference.
Yeah, and a huge get for them because Frankie Collins was supposed to step into that role, and they lost him to Arizona State.
I think he's better than Frankie Collins, honestly.
I don't know. I kind of like me some Frankie Collins.
We'll always have that one Frankie Collins game.
I know. In the tournament too. That was awesome. Yeah. All right, let's go to Sparty here. 23-13 last season, 42nd at KenPom. Torvik's got them 22nd. KenPom's got them 31st to start the year. Gavin, we'll go to you first. His team loses the headliner, Julius Marble. He's gone to the Big 12. Gabe Brown also gone. Marcus Bingham is gone. Max Christie, who you also hate, is gone too. They bring in a couple top 100 guys. And besides that, it's the same dudes that we hated last year. Tyson Walker's back. AJ Hogard goes into his sophomore season. What do you think about the offseason here?
Yeah, his team was just so meh last year. Just blah as shit. A bunch of guys who were all right, nobody with really any ceiling to kind of take over in any extended stretches. I mean, you lose Gabe Brown. Honestly, we joke about Bingham and the fact that he probably could have been filed for assault or charged with assault for more than points that he scored in his career, but they're going to miss him on this front line. They have no depth at the 5 whatsoever. They're going to be relying on Matty Sissoko. Are you fucking kidding me?
Hauser's going to start at the 5.
Okay, start Joey Hauser. Watch how that works a couple games into the year. I mean, don't even get me going on Joey Hauser, bro. My doctor recommended me not to speak about Joey Hauser because of what it does to my blood pressure. That being said, I think AJ Hoggard's a really interesting piece. For a Michigan State team that's going to be probably shit this year, he showed pretty good promise last year. He was 4th in assists in the conference and 3rd in assists to turnover ratio. He had a 17-10 game, 17 points, 10 assists, 10 assists with no turnovers, playing on a rolled ankle in the tourney after Walker exited the game. So he needs to shoot better from 3. Walker alleviates some of that because he just flamed the net off. 49% from 3 in conference play is nutty from Walker. Now, we need to see extended minutes from these guys. They could be pretty usable. They both got decent rates. And with these Hoggard, the weight loss concern, the weight loss, he's lost a bunch of weight. He's going to be this one.
He was a guy who was a little pudgy last year, though.
He was. He had a little bit of baby fat on him. It's all right. No worries. But he'll be all right. Malik Hall comes back. He's kind of similar to Gabe Brown, serviceable, 2-way forward. Not going to be great on either end, but he's going to be good enough on both ends. Aiken's kind of a guy that might break out. Some people have him, pegged for that. So we'll see. It's kind of an interesting little backcourt with those three: Walker, Hoggard, and Akins. But other than that, this team is in trouble. I think Izzo's embracing much more of a long-term approach. Like he didn't take in any portal guys. He doesn't, because he feels it deters freshmen. And so I don't know if this correlates, but he immediately grabs himself a banger of a 2023 class.
Yeah, that class next year is top 5.
So maybe it works. I don't know. We'll see. But this is not the Michigan State year whatsoever.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you, Gavin, there. Don't really love the starting 5. Hauser at the 5 is going to be an issue. I'll always remember the chalk Marcus Bingham slate where I got buried there. Turtle, what do you think about the roster turnover here? And I mean, if they're going to all continue to play 18 to 22 minutes, we're not going to play these guys that often in DFS.
Yeah, I'm just glad we don't have to deal with Marcus Bingham for DFS this year. It was very stressful. I like Hoggard a ton. My issue is I don't know if he's going to play that many more minutes this year, just because I think they're kind of set on rotating Hoggard and Walker a bit. That kind of worries me. Hoggard had the highest assist rate in the country last year, but he couldn't shoot worth shit. And Tyson Walker comes in and drills 2 threes, and then like he's staying in for a while. So I don't know. Do you think they could ever play them together?
I think you have to.
But I mean, I think they're going to try to force the square Jaden Akins into the round hole of starting at the 2, but that's not going to work out well. He was on my list of like logical breakout candidates, but like just look at what he did last season. Like I just can't do it. Like I'd be shocked if he emerged and kind of broke out this season. But I do like, if Hoggard's going to be on the court, I really like him. Yeah, I can't imagine Hauser at the 5 plays out well. But Izzo did allude to that.
That ought to go well.
Yeah, right. You're gonna need to. Yeah,
he thought he fouled a lot last year.
Sissoko to assault Edie a few times in that game for sure. So
yeah,
they just don't have any depth at the 5, and that's something they typically have. So it's not going to be like a normal Michigan State team from that perspective. They're pretty meh. So I agree. Like in terms of like new guys they're bringing in, like Jackson Kohler's like a big, skilled 6'9" guy, but I'm not sure how much he plays immediately. And like they kind of scrambled to grab some other recruits like Carson Cooper. Like he's like a mid-major type guy, and they just took him in late because they need depth. So it's going to be next year until like the reinforcements arrive, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a down year for Michigan State. I would be floored if they end the season where Torvik and KenPom have them in the 20 to 30 range. I think they're closer to Maryland than they are any of, like the Indiana, Illinois, Michigan. Any last thoughts here, Gavin? I will say Hoggard 0.92 fantasy points per minute last year. So, yeah, I mean, if he plays 25, 28, something like that, definitely going to be on our radar. Any last thoughts, Gavin?
No, I got him 8th. So, on a tier break after Rutgers, it's going to be all backcourt reliant. Yeah, it's your way, definitely.
Yep. Any last thoughts, Turtle?
No. Save my breath for the next.
Well, do you want to? Here comes Minnesota.
Here come the next 2 teams, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah. 13 and 19, 109th at KenPom. KenPom's got him 109th coming in. Possibly didn't even look at the team. Just said, just print it. Just print it. Let's go to next year. This team loses Elijah Stevens, Luke Lowe, Eric Curry, Peyton Willis, Charlie Daniels. They bring in Dawson Garcia from UNC after that weird year he had there, and a Morehead State transfer, Talon Cooper. We'll go to you first, Gavin, since you seemed excited to talk about the Gophers here. What do you think about the offseason and first thoughts on the roster?
Yeah, you talk about turnover. This is the second consecutive year where they essentially bring back one guy, okay? Last year was Eric Curry, and they brought back Einan, but Einan tore his ACL and missed the entire year, so he was out. This year, they bring back Jamison Battle and Ichabod Crane, Trayton Thompson, okay? But Thompson was completely worthless outside of 2 games where he slotted in because of injuries, right? So when you have that roster turnover, it's just tough to build any sort of consistency. Like, especially when you lose your do-it-all point guard in Peyton Willis. Like, the best way I would classify this team this year is they'll finish as far away from the bottom as Jamison Battle and Dawson Garcia can drag them. Pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because the thing is, Dawson Garcia and Jamison Battle, I'm taking them over Terrence Williams and Jet Howard, and they're probably behind Terry Shannon and Matt Mayer for wing pairings in the conference. That's a phenomenal wing pairing. Now, literally everybody after that is not good at basketball for Big Ten standards. So that's where the problem arises, right? So that's why I kind of just feel like if they're going to have big years, then maybe they finish in front of a couple teams. Otherwise, they're going to be, one of the last two teams.
Yeah, Turtle, my first note here is this is a Ohio Valley roster playing in the Big Ten. What do you think about the team overall? We saw Battle just play a shitload of minutes last year, and basically this team had some relevant pieces in DFS because he played such a tight rotation. What do you think about that and just the starting five overall?
I hope Dawson Garcia is in great shape because they're going to try to hand him 38 minutes a game. So let's see if he can handle that. It's going to be kind of like last year where you have like the top guys on the team are going to be relevant for DFS slates just because they play so much. It's like hard for them to fail. And like you have those insane ceiling games that Peyton Willis had last year. Like you could see that from a Garcia this year for sure. The team sucks beyond that. And like when if you have two guys that are good on the team, like you'd rather like one of them be a big and one of them be a guard. So at least they can play a 2-man game. Like you have two good wings, like who's going to get them the ball without fucking up? Like it's going to be a mess. They're definitely a bottom 2 team. Like Northwestern deserves to be a bottom 2 team, but like Minnesota and Nebraska are just so bad that
they're just worse
in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Any last thoughts here, Gavin? I think for us, it's going to be Garcia. It's going to be Battle, and that's probably about it.
No, nothing more to add. I'll get back to Battle later in the show. Don't worry.
All right. Last note here. They were 33rd in 3-point percentage last year. Fendler on Twitter, who we had on for the ACC podcast, pointed out that their shot quality was horrific, though. So that probably goes back to they were 339th in 2021. So I would not expect...
I do have one more note here. So as bad as Minnesota was last year, okay, they actually started out 10-1, okay, and then they went 3-16 after the New Year turn. But I think this team is probably very much the opposite, where it looks ugly early, and maybe they find just enough form to catch a couple teams in conference to not make them finish last. But yeah, we're spending a lot of time on a bad team, and we get another one on deck.
Yep, let's go to Nebraska. 10-22 last year, 140th at Ken Pom. Torvik's got them 89th. No, he updated it, 92nd to start the season. Ken Pom just outside the top 100. Expecting some improvement. When you look at this roster, Gavin, do you see any improvement? They lose their 2 best players from last year. Bryce McGowan's, Alonzo Verge is gone. Kobe Webster's gone. Lot Mayen is gone. Trey McGowan's is gone. And they bring in Sam Griesel from North Dakota State. I think is going to be their best player and their point guard. Your boy Juwan Gary is here. What do you think?
Thank God for Oregon State, dude. That's what Nebraska is feeling this year, because if not for Oregon State, Nebraska would be holding the mantle for worst Power 5 roster. Fred Hoiberg has won 9 conference games in 3 years. Okay. Like, this team's going to revolve around Derek Walker and a North Dakota State transfer. So, and they got a couple of serviceable, I'm not going to say good, I'm going to say serviceable shooters in Bandamel, Wilcher, and Tominaga. But Juwan Gary's just a grown-ass dude. He's not a good basketball player. I mean, he's going to be more of an enforcer than he is a guy to put up high rates and efficiency with statistical production. Derek Walker could be interesting, but yeah, this team, this is dead last, no question, with a bullet.
Yeah, I think Walker's going to lead this team in scoring. Hopefully his minutes bump up a bit, Turtle. We saw 26 a game last year. I think it's him and the North Dakota State transfer. What do you think about those two guys? And then do you see anything else here?
I mean, this roster is embarrassing. Like it's like a bottom of a conference. Like it's.
You don't like Wilhelm Breidenbach?
Where's the rest of it? Where are your players? Like you talk about like get off the bus teams. Like they have Jawan Gary. Like hope they let him walk in front. Like come on. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like a grab bag team and like not a good grab bag team. Like,
yeah, I mean, but for DFS, they're going to have a high pace. They were 19th in tempo last year. We played. I mean, you're right. We might just be jamming guys against this team.
Yeah. Also, like I'm interested to see where they price Bandamel and Greasel at the start of the season because they certainly could get overlooked in pricing, especially like a guy like Bandamel comes from SMU and he's going to have a bigger role in this team. Like that could be someone that gets overlooked in their non-existent algorithm.
I'm always scared that the up transfers they get overpriced because they just look at like.
Is this an up transfer? Or is this
I mean, I wasn't going to interrupt him, but like coming to SMU to Nebraska, like
that's a down transfer, bro.
I was talking about Greasel, but yeah.
Okay, I mean, same thing might apply there.
Right. You know what I mean? A guy that wasn't on slates that's now on slates is what I actually meant. All right, that's enough about Nebraska. Let's go to Northwestern. 15-16 last year. They finished 87th at KenPom. Pretty big discrepancy between Torvik and KenPom. Torvik's got them 92nd entering the season. KenPom 70th. They lose Pete Nance to UNC. We talked about him a ton on the ACC podcast, Turtle. Massive loss, obviously. They don't really bring in anyone. What do you think about the Nance loss and this roster overall?
It's massive. I think someone should give KenPom a heads up that they lost Pete Nance so he can update his rating on them. It's pretty big. Like that's the biggest loss I see in the conference for sure. Just I mean, it's good for Boo Booey and his DFS prospects this year. Like I think Collins mentioned that like he has to be like a player of the year candidate for them to have any success this year. So that kind of tells me
then they're screwed.
They're gonna put it on his shoulders. Like I don't care if he's good. Like just give me the fantasy points, brother.
That's true. Gavin, we kind of like Audige coming into last year. Never really put it together. Didn't really play as many minutes as at least I expected. Only 26 a game last year. Team had a pretty deep rotation outside of Nance. I'm hoping that changes. What do you think about the Nance loss and then this roster here?
Yeah, the Nance loss. So if you say, losing Pete Nance is -1 to a power rating or whatever, just generally speaking. Now, the problem is that you lose Nance and now who you replace him with is Titus Verhoeven, for like a guy who started 2 years at UTEP, who's a defensive guy, but a complete non-factor on the offensive end. Now, that being said, Audige cannot have another year as bad as he did last year, right? I mean, he dipped on 3-point percentage from 34% to 25%. Scoring went down 12.3 to 9.8. Let me ask you something. You like fantasy points, right, Turtle?
Sometimes.
Who's the leading returning guard scorer in the entire Big Ten? Who the highest returning guard who led the conference in scoring?
Is it Bowie?
That would be one Boo Booey. So you put some goddamn respect on my guy's name, okay? Boo Booey is damn good. I think he's going to be second team. I don't know if he's going to quite cuff it on first team because it's basically you got to be the one guard other than, like 3 or 4 bigs. But I think Boo Booey's great. I think he's going to be a DFS beast this year. Like we could see some gnarly volume, but it's going to be entirely him and Audige and a completely depleted front court in a conference where you're going to have to face Edey, Dickinson. It's just it's going to be ugly for him, no question.
Yeah, this team's going to get smashed inside. The coach did note, Gavin, that Audige battled a hip injury the entire season, so it was nice to not know that at all the entire year last year.
Sounds like college basketball reporting.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on the rest of the roster here, Turl?
I mean, losing Ryan Young is also important too, just from like a rebounding perspective. Like,
Right.
who is gonna like? I guess it's gonna be on this Verhoeven guy from
Titus.
UTEP. Titus, yeah, Tydus.
BYDUS. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Good luck with that, Northwestern.
Yeah. Any last thoughts here, Gavin? I'll take that as a no. Let's go to Ohio State, a team that I like quite a bit here. 20-12 last year, 31st at KenPom. I think this is the biggest discrepancy we've seen. KenPom's got them 32nd to start the year. I see Torvik at 68. This team obviously loses EJ Liddell, just a superstar last year. They lose Kyle Young finally. I say that just because he was there forever. Jamari Wheeler's gone. Malachi Branham is gone. Justin Aarons is finally gone. Joey Brunk's finally gone. Michi Johnson transferred out. But they add some, I think, glue guy type of transfers in Ice Likely, Sean McNeil, and they bring in Tanner Holden from Wright State, who we played a bit down the stretch. Turtle, what do you think about the offseason here? They lose a ton, but it seems like they kind of retooled with the transfers and a pretty decent recruiting class.
Yeah, I generally like what they've done. I don't think it was in their plans to lose Branham after 1 year, but he was so good last year. Like he kind of had to leave just because where he's going to get drafted. So I think that kind of threw a wrench into things for Ohio State in terms of like just planning guys over the course of the next few years. But they bring in 4 top 100 recruits, so I think they're pretty good shape. They have some interesting transfers. McNeil, kind of like a spot up shooter. Ice Likely, like we've seen him do some good things and some not so good things, but he's a guy who can play at this level. And I'm definitely interested to see how Tanner Holden can adjust to the Big Ten. He was a 20-point scorer last year, 34% from 3. I don't know if he'll be able to duplicate that. However, I think everything falls on the shoulders of Justice Suing on this team to be healthy. Like he's the thing that keeps it all together and allows them to realize their ceiling. I just don't know where he's at health wise. I think he's in a lot better shape than last year. And it's also interesting that like Zed Key goes from like where he was last year to being like the go-to guy offensively. So from a DFS perspective, definitely interested to see where he's priced at, because like his usage and rebound rate should shoot up a bit with no Liddell there. The other thing, one of their recruits, Bryce Sensabaugh, is a 6'6", 240-pound wing. How many guys do you see as top 100 recruits that have those measurables? So
wow, he's huge,
beefy boy. So we'll see how that works.
It's like a linebacker.
High pedigree David Roddy is what that sounds like.
Yeah, I kind of like it. Like you see, like the guys playing on like just the unconventional body types playing different positions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I think the Zed Key thing is huge. I mean, we were considering him on a lot of slates at 19, 20 minutes a game last year. So, if he gets that considerable bump, I think he's going to be a go-to guy for us. Always really good on a per minute basis. Gavin, what do you think of the offseason and how they kind of plugged holes here? And I know you want to talk about Suing.
Yeah, he's a modern day guy. He got and modern day guy for like 1 year, I think. But like Suing's the type of guy who he's not going to blister the statistics in terms of like his production, but he's a much better, I think, real life player in terms of what he can bring to a team in terms of, point forward. He's got to shoot it a little bit better than, that 30-ish%. And we probably don't know, like Turtle mentioned, where he's at health wise, literally until game 1. And he suits up or he doesn't suit up, and we'll see his minute count and we'll kind of go from there. But Holtman has mentioned this is like the best recruiting class he's literally had ever, and probably the best in at least 10 years for Ohio State. McNeil and Ice, I think, are like perfect complements of one another. One's more of a defensive guard, one's obviously more of a shooter, but likely I think can take some of the pressure off of Thornton. Definitely playing kind of some off-ball combo guard, point guard when need be. Zed Key's going to be interesting, right? Because a guy who, within his minutes was relatively efficient. Now, does he have, one, the cardio to be run up and down the floor 30-plus minutes? And two, what does his efficiency drop-off look like, if we are thinking that he's probably going to be a little bit more gas just being a bigger boy, but he's going to be a force. I think he probably comes in, Turtle, like 6 to 7K early in the year, and I think we're probably playing him.
Yeah, that's a jam.
I think he's gonna be cheaper than that, and I think we're definitely gonna play him. But yeah, yeah, I kind of like the way this roster fits. I'm definitely higher than Torvik at 67. Like, I think they're better than Maryland. I think they're better than Michigan State. We were low on this team coming into last year when they were preseason number 8 and they finished 31st. I think they could finish 30s. I think there's a ton of upside just with the talent on this roster. And I like the mix of the young talent with like the Ice and McNeil, like glue guys, seniors. What do you think about that, Turtle, and anything else on Ohio State here?
Yeah, I think their range of outcome for the conference is in like the 2 to 5 range. I really don't see them falling much below that. Like, yeah, they're definitely pretty interesting.
Yep. We just touched on Thornton for a second earlier. I think he probably starts the point guard top 50 guy. It's him.
He's like a two-way guy, so he fits in good. Like, he can play some
Yeah.
defense. He's not just like some
Yeah, I think he's a guy that will be playing some early. Hopefully he's cheap. Any last thoughts here, Gavin?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you guys in terms of the fact that I'm so down on Iowa, at 6 means that I kind of see Ohio State's, floor at 5.
I like this team better than Iowa.
My rub with this team is, okay, not only do they have EJ Liddell the past 2 years, but in meaningful games in the back half of the season during conference and in tournament games, they had Malachi Branham to bail them out, and they had Dwayne Washington, just straight up go-to bucket getters late in the game. Okay, I don't know if I see that on this roster. Like, they could be a little bit more variant towards the bad side this year than what they've been compared to in the last 2 years, kind of because of that. But overall, I like the depth. I like the pieces. It hinges a little bit more on Zed Key than I would like, but overall, I like the team.
Yeah, this team has something that most teams in the Big Ten don't have, which is hope. Hope that they can have a good season. So
yes, Seth Towns has hope that he's going to be healthy, but he's missed 3 full seasons so far. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, when you bring in 4 top 65 guys, the ceiling's just gonna be higher than a team like Iowa, I think. All right, let's go to Penn State. 14 and 17 last year, 88 to Ken Pom. Wow, another big discrepancy. Torvik's got them 81st, Ken Pom 46th. Seems way high. This team loses Sam Sessoms. John Harrar is a huge loss, and they also lose Greg Lee. They bring in Cam Winter, who I think we played on like a Thursday NCAA tournament slate one time from Drexel, and Andrew Funk from Bucknell. We'll go to you first, Gavin. What do you think about the offseason, and what do you think about the roster? I think basically everyone in their rotation is like 22 years old.
Yeah, they bring back their top 2 scorers in Jalen Pickett and Seth Lundy. And I think Pickett's probably the main guy to compete with Xavier Johnson for best point guard of the conference, which, holy shit, speaks to the level of point guard play in the conference. But, John Harrar, it's hard to really overstate his loss and impact to the team, right? Penn State was out-rebounded only 8 times in 31 games last year. And that was pretty much mostly thanks to John Harrar. And now we look at this front court, and it is just a bunch of bodies. Like, it's going to be a backcourt-driven team with, Lundy maybe playing, the 4. But outside of kind of Pickett and Lundy and maybe a spot-up shots from Jared, I don't really know. Like, Winter, I don't know how Winter fits unless you play Lundy at the 4, which maybe you do, and then you just run the Pickett, Winter, Lundy, Dredd, and another guy in there. But, yeah, it's overall just really low floor. That being said, they do have the highest rated recruit since 2016. Don't even make me pronounce this.
Is it Keba?
Keba the center?
Keba Ng? And the thing is, like, Micah Shrewsbury is going to run a very slow tempo, like, grind it out in the half court execution, and it's going to be hard for this team to execute in the half court. So yeah, generally low. This team's probably definitely back half, probably lower quartile.
Yeah, Turtle, They do play slow, but we saw them all play a ton of minutes last year. Pickett over 37 a game, Lundy over 32 a game. What do you think about the roster overall? And yeah, Gavin brought up a good point. I had a note here. Their tallest player is 6'8".
Well, isn't Keba like 6'11"?
I've got him at he's 6'8" on Torvik. I'll
Okay,
check.
you're right. He's he's not. I mixed him up with somebody else. I think ideal. Yeah, Pickett. Yeah, it's sad. Like he's like a top 2 guard in the conference, but yeah, I think he's gonna have a big season from a statistical perspective. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with Winter. Like he's been a pretty like upwards of like a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy at Drexel. I don't see that holding here, and I think Funk is going to be more of like a role player. I wonder what their starting 5 is going to be. Like, are they going to try to start Keba at the 5 and Lundy at the 4? Like, I really don't know how this is all going to work, but they're going to have huge issues on the glass. Like, even beyond like losing Harar, like they lose Greg Lee, who is pretty decent rebounder behind them. Like, I don't see how they survive in the paint. It's going to be rough.
Yes, just to that point real quick with Harar and Lee, they were 22nd or 29th in 2-point percentage defense last year, but before that, 302nd. I could see this kind of reverting to them just getting pounded in the paint just routinely in this conference. Go ahead. Sorry. Back to you, Turtle. Sorry.
Oh no! That's like all I had on Penn State.
That's all you
like,
had. All right, yeah.
Like
right,
I really don't. I don't have a good feel for like the 6th to 8th guy on Penn State at this point in the year. It's going to be. I don't think we see big minutes guys outside of the top 2 here. They're going to do a lot of mixing and matching, trying to figure things out.
Okay, Gav, any last thoughts here?
No, it's kind of a similar situation as Northwestern. They got a couple of decent. They got 2 good scores and just a bunch of bums, and they're going to get their ass whooped underneath. So it's going to be a long year for them in the Big Ten.
Yep. All right, let's go to Purdue. Coming off just an awesome season, 29-8. They had 14th at KenPom. Both Torvik and KenPom have them the 25 to 30 range coming into this season. Massive losses, biggest in the conference, I think. Obviously, lose Jaden Ivey, Travion Williams. They also lose Eric Hunter. And they don't really bring in that much. They bring in Foster Lawyer's brother, who's a top 100 shooting guard, and they bring in David Jenkins from Utah, who I don't see how he fits well here. And one thing to note, Trey Kaufman-Wren, a top 100 guy last year, redshirted, talented kid. What do you think about the losses, Gavin, and how that impacts how they move forward here?
Yeah, Trev Williams and Jaden Ivey, and then kind of the, I don't know, glue shooter and Stefanovic. That's massive, right? I mean, Ivey was just a different level athlete in that entire conference that could have got you out of sticky spots. Now, that being said, they still got to address that dog-ass perimeter defense that they played last year. Do they have it here? I think they have a little more, but I don't know if it's much more. Like, Brandon Newman and Ethan Morton are expected to take big steps up in roles and minutes. Like, for what it's worth, Newman was actually runner-up to TJD for Mr. Indiana their senior year of high school. So, like, good pedigree, but has never really had a chance to blossom, in any sort of role. And, like, Morton's a good complement to a potential freshman starter in Braden Smith. He takes care of the ball pretty well, 70 to 31 assists to turnovers with some decent size, 6'6", and can potentially plug some of that defensive perimeter liability. Look, David Jenkins he's going to be a spot-up shooter on this team. Like, his best career year was third team all Mountain West for UNLV. Like, he can be a hot hand on a given night, but he ain't going to carry nobody on any given night in the Big Ten. Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of the top 4 teams just because of, Zach Edey, and I think what he's going to do on a night in and night out basis with extended minutes. And I'll let Turtle get his piece because I want to do a Zach Edey exercise after that.
All right, we will go to you, Turtle. What do you think about the roster overall? Definitely forward heavy. Penn State could use one of these top 4 guys that they have here at Purdue.
They need First, who's probably not going to play a ton.
Yeah, I agree. the team, they pretty much lose anybody who facilitated offense in any way last year. So they have a freshman point guard, Braden Smith, coming in, who's probably going to start. Like, I don't know if he's going to be ready to run the team. I think they're probably going to have to play Morton a lot to kind of facilitate offense, which is an interesting spot for Purdue to be in at this point of the year. It's going to be the Zach Edey show. Like, it's like his numbers are just nasty. The spreadsheets say that he's going to be quite good this year. So
the spreadsheet does say that. Yeah.
take that for what it's worth. 1.38 DK points per minute last year. If his minutes get stretched out even further, which they should with no Trevion, like, it's going to be disgusting, the things he does in terms of stat lines he puts up. So play him in DFS. Like, I don't see how he can get too expensive. Like,
yeah. So in the Almanac, Painter has quotes saying that Edey will play 30 minutes a game if he doesn't foul. So if he's playing 28 to 30, he's just going to kill every single slate that he's on. What do you think about the non-Edey guys here, Turtle? Like the Gillises, the Newmans of the world. I don't see much in their guard rotation unless one of these freshmen takes a big step.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to have anybody that averages over like 20 fantasy points a game. And at that point, like, how relevant are they for our purposes?
Yeah, that's true.
First is pretty interesting. Like, if like Edey gets hurt and misses a few games, like, things will get interesting with him pretty fast. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on that. But beyond that, like, so much usage and the production is going to be funneled through Edey. It's going to be tough to consider all these other guys. Like, you're going to have everyone else in the team's like fantasy like per minute rates like in like 0.5, 0.6s. Like, there's nobody else that really stands out and separates that I see.
Well, and it's going to be an issue. Torvik's got Edey projected for 33% usage. Gavin, you said you wanted to do something on Edey real quick.
So he had 10 double-doubles in games that he didn't even play a full 25, right? Like, what's this guy's actual ceiling? Genuinely. So his per 40 rate last year was 31 and 16. Okay. So if Matt Painter should literally play him every minute that he's not in foul trouble. But if I know Matt Painter, he will not play him every minute that he's
not. If Matt Painter fucks this up and plays like splits minutes with like Edey and Kaufman, Wren, and First, this is going to be so.
Okay, so let's say Edey averages 30 a year, 30 minutes a game this year, which is probably what Painter ends up doing because he's such a dipshit. Okay. What's his points and rebounds at 30 minutes a game?
They are going to be, so he averaged 14.4 in 19 minutes. So let's do
that. I can, while you look at that, I can give you fantasy points. I could put in my spreadsheet 30 minutes for Edey and Purdue, like
I didn't mean to get like super technical. I'm more
like
just
41 fantasy points a game.
Broad stroke. If we're looking at his production last year and he did 14 and 7 in 19 minutes, are we talking like we're probably talking 18 and 10 minimum at 30 minutes a game, right?
So Gavin,
41.5 fantasy points for 30 minutes.
So if you extrapolate what he did last year to 30 a game, he's going to average 23 and 12.
And that's before you even get to like the blocks and shit,
Yeah.
So
if he averages 30 minutes a game
minimum at that level, which is insane to think about. That should be his floor this year.
If he plays 30 minutes a game, he's going to have like an Oscar Tshiebwe type DFS year.
Yeah. He'll be way more productive on the offensive end, and I think have more blocks.
Maybe
he'll
with
probably
more
have similar rebounds.
As scary as that is.
What I'm getting to, it's actually insane to think about what this guy can do in a game where he gets 35 minutes.
Yeah, I just don't think that
he could easily 2020. Like he's probably the highest ceiling fantasy guy we've seen since Luka Garza if he's deployed correctly.
Yeah. Anything outside of Edey for you? I think Turtle's right. I think it's going to be Edey or bust unless like the redshirt freshman takes a big role. But I just see a log jam at forward outside of Edey. Gav?
Me? Oh, yeah. Sorry. No. Gillis. Gillis is a better real life player than he is fantasy. He's a great fit alongside Edey. career 39% shooter. Going to his senior year, can guard multiple positions. It can do a lot of the dirty work, and keep Edey out of foul trouble because that's going to be the name of the game. But, first probably becomes a little duplicative. I think I was out over my skis slightly. He's probably another year away after Edey gets drafted. But yeah, I generally like Gillis. I think he's all right.
All right, cool. Any last words here, Turtle?
No, I'm good.
All right, let's go to Rutgers. I think they're an interesting team. 18-14 last year, 77th at Ken Palm. Bunch of high-level wins on their resume, though. Torvik and Ken Palm both have them in the mid-50s. So sizable jump coming into this year. They lose Geo Baker. They lose Fat Ron. And they don't really bring in anyone. But they have a lot coming back here, Turtle. What do you think about the losses of Baker and Ron Harper and then kind of their outlook going into the season?
I mean, in typical Big Ten years, those losses would be a bigger deal than they are in this year, I think.
Yeah.
And they're one of the few teams in the Big Ten that can actually sport like an actual big three instead of just like two guys in a pile of crap. So I think they're positioned pretty well to have a pretty solid season. Like Amarui, he could challenge for like all Big Ten. So they bring McConnell's big on the defensive end. He anchors that side. So they have some pieces. Like obviously they're going to miss Harper's shot making. Same with Geo Baker, but I think they'll be fine this year.
Same. They did bring in Cam Spencer from Loyola Marymount or Maryland, who averaged 9 3-point attempts a game last year.
That's baby.
Wild. Yeah. So in his career, averaged 8.2, 6.8, and 9, shot 44%, 47%, and 35%. So over 3 years.
He'll make up for all the threes that Baker and Harper leave behind.
Yeah, so Gavin, what do you think about this roster? I really like the starting five. We saw Caleb McConnell just turn into just a lockdown perimeter defender. And Mulcahy played really well as a point guard. I like this team.
I like it to an extent. Like, I think it's a really high floor team. It's hard to see them going haywire and being in like the bottom half of the Big Ten. But I just like, are they going to win every conference game 52-50? Like, yeah, they got some defensive pieces, no doubt. McConnell's like a National Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And Omarui certainly holds his own down low. Like, everyone just needs to settle down on the Mulcahy shit. Like,
it was good last year.
Dude had some crazy games sprinkled around some not so crazy games.
Yeah, I will say, able to put the ball in the bucket. It's like, God, but one of the best point guards in the Big Ten. Like,
I think he is.
Pickett, Bowie, Llewellyn, XJ. I'm all taking over him. Maybe even Hoggard if he takes it. And if last year Hoggard, no. If Hoggard takes a step forward from 3 this year, yes.
For daily fantasy, I think Mulcahy is better than most of those guys just because the peripherals are so good. You know, we saw good rebound and assist rates. I do want to correct myself on the Cam Spencer thing. I was looking at his per 40 rates. He averaged 5.6 attempts. I saw, I was like, oh my God, this guy rules. So Turtle, what do you think about the front court there? We saw these guys play a bunch of minutes, especially down the stretch, to their starters. I think it's going to be the same just because their bench is pretty uninspiring again. What do you think about the Mulcahy, McConnell guys? The peripherals are awesome.
Yeah, they should be solid. I'm curious to see like how much usage Cam Spencer gets. Like he was a 0.9 fantasy point guy last year. I'm assuming that comes down quite a bit, but the other options will definitely be relevant for DFS slates, I think. I mean, I don't see how they don't play a ton. And when you play a ton in fantasy basketball, like you're going to be pretty relevant. So I like the big three. There's no one that really, like, I'm always worried to play like Caleb McConnell when he's over like 5K, just because you never know really what you're getting on the offensive end. Yeah. But he shows up every night on the defensive end. I think Amarui is going to be the most consistent guy. So that'll be someone I'm looking to in the season.
Yeah, I love him here. I think the minutes tick up. There's like sneaky a lot of usage to be filled with Ron and Baker gone. And I think that they only really trust those three guys. So I think those three guys are going to be great, with Spencer being more of a spot up shooter in this conference.
Yeah, one more thing. What's interesting is like Hyatt, like he was actually a fairly high usage guy for them last year when he played. So I wonder if like he comes in and like absorbs more than like you would think that he would.
Yeah, my note was nice rates and limited minutes. Got to keep tabs on with all this usage open. I like that. What do you think? Any other notes here, Gavin, on Rutgers?
God, what's the score of Rutgers Penn State going to be? 46-44?
Yeah. It's going to be low tempo, low scoring.
They'll be all right. They're gonna grind teams into absolute dust, and they're gonna catch a lot of teams on a sleepy travel spot to Jersey.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun team to bet on in certain spots. Any last notes here, Turtle?
No, I'm good.
All right, last team, Wisconsin, 25-8 last year, 37th at KenPom. Both Torvik and KenPom have them taken a step back, 55th at KenPom, 66th at Torvik. Gavin, do they have any key losses here?
Yeah, Brad Davison. Actually, losing Brad Davison is just a gut punch of a senior leader, a guy who was there. Oh, and that Johnny Davis guy too. Yeah. We talked about like Keegan Murray covering up a lot of what probably would have been vast inefficiencies had he not had the unbelievable step forward in year he had. Kind of same thing with Johnny Davis. Like the guy literally hoisted a Big 12 title on his back the entire way, like hurt half the time. It was one of the most insane seasons in terms of a jump forward ever. Now they turn the keys over to Chucky Hepburn. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah, lots of usage gone here, Turtle. 34 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. All of the Wisconsin blogs are touting a new big three of Hepburn, Tyler Wall, and Stephen Corral. I'm not buying it. What do you think? It sounds terrible.
Pass, hard pass. Are you? My question is, are you ready for 8K Tyler Wall? He had some pretty decent games last year, so I think he's going to assume a lot of the offensive responsibilities. But I still don't enjoy Wisconsin basketball.
Can we just like pretend that this team isn't playing this season and just not use them?
I mean, that's what we typically do for DFS. So
yeah, well, okay. Tyler Wall scored 11.4 a game with Johnny Davis and Davison on the floor, hogging every shot. What does he average this year?
16.
I was gonna say like 15.
16 and 8. Yeah.
Fuck, I'll take that for 8K some nights. Like,
yeah, no, I think we'll play some Wall. I think people will play more Hepburn than they should. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing I am, Turtle. 0.53 fantasy points per minute is what I have him at.
My concern, one of my biggest concerns going into the season is that I'm going to be too low on Hepburn and be overly stubborn on him because I think he's going to pop up at like 4,500 on some slates, and I'm just going to be really stubborn, and everyone's going to play him and bury me with his 23 fantasy points.
There is a ton of usage that has to be sucked up by someone, right? Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't that good last year. People in the media love him, so people know his name. I mean, he was already playing 31 minutes a game last year, so the improvement's got to be with efficiency and usage. I guess we'll see. Any last thoughts here, Gavin? I think it's Wall and maybe Hepburn if he improves.
No, we've been dogging Greg Gard for so long, and he got so bailed out from Johnny Davis last year. He got bailed out 2 years ago because he had a team that was literally older than the Washington Wizards that same year. Okay, people are talking Chucky Hepburn, second team all conference. Okay, just to give people perspective of how bad the guard play is in the Big Ten. Okay, let's say that Chucky Hepburn was in the Big 12, right? Okay. Point guards, I'm taking ahead of him. DeJuan Harris, basically an older version of him. Marquise Noel, Grant Sherfield, Avery Anderson, Mike Miles, Marcus Carr. Those are not even discussions, okay? Mm-hmm. Then you get to Jaron Holmes. Am I taking Jaron Holmes or Chucky Hepburn? Like
Jaron Holmes.
Probably Jaron Holmes. Am I taking Kedrian Johnson over Hepburn? Maybe you can argue Hepburn in that, but it would never work under Bob Huggins. That's a different discussion. So maybe you take him over Kedrian. Maybe you take him over Damian Harmon. He's basically like the third worst point guard in the Big 12, and he's second team, potentially all conference for the Big 10. If Greg, look. If Greg Gard can make chicken salad out of this chicken shit, I will never speak ill of him ever again, ever. Period. Okay, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this is the year where it finally catches up to him because we just don't like him. Any last words here, Turtle?
Love cheese, hate this team. Move on.
Yeah. All right, let's do our all conference first teams. You're the guest here, Turtle, so we'll let you have the floor first. I think there's 3 just stone locks here.
All right, so I'm starting with Edie, following that up with Hunter Dickinson, TJD, and you know what? This is the Big 10 all conference team. We don't play guards. I'm adding Chris Murray and Terrence Shannon to my first team. That's just like I can't do it. I can't do the guards.
I love that. I don't have any guards on mine. Gavin, I know you have the first 3. So who are your other 2?
Yeah, if I got Illinois to win the conference, it's on the back of the Terry Shannon emergence in the new role. That's my 4th guy. And then the 5th guy, right? Like, because I have to take this stand against Chris Murray. If I'm down on Iowa, it's because Chris Murray is not Keegan. So, and if he's first team, that means Iowa's decent. So I can't put him in. I went with one Jamison Battle. Like, without Peyton Willis on the floor and flaky Dawson Garcia, who knows what the hell we're going to get from him from night to night versus much less a whole season. Yeah. Battle might be the leading scorer of this conference, maybe other than Zach Edey because of just that guy's efficiency. But Battle is going to chuck like all holy hell, first team all conference, Terrell Brown type year, absolute beast on a dog-ass team, book it, done.
Yeah,
that's an alpha pick. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I had him on the consideration but didn't make it. Man, Terrell Brown. Turtle, when we did the Pac-12, we just looked at his stats from last year. We were like, wow, that was awesome. Just out of nowhere, too. So mine is TJD, Dickinson, Edey. I've got Chris Murray 4. And I went with Cliff. Big Cliff from Rutgers. I think that he, plays low 30s a game. I think the team is pretty good. And I think he's their usage leader and puts up some big games and, has some big spots, in conference play. Let's go to our impact transfers real quick. We'll do what we did last time, and we'll each draft one. These are transfers from outside the conference coming in. I'll let you go first, Gavin, since you had Jamison Battle on your first team all conference.
What do you mean?
I mean, you are the one who had the most fun pick, so you get to pick first for transfers.
Yeah, if Turtle and I both got Terry Shannon on the first team, then we actually, frankly, it kind of scared the piss out of me because we saw a lot of these guys transfer and not make quite the impact that we thought they were going to do. I'm looking at you, Remy Martin, and Marcus Carr, you fucking mutts. So. It is a decent jump to see him as first team, but I think just with the role that he has and the fact that I got him first team, I got to have him as the breakout guy, which I'll leave Turtle to the rest of the carcass.
All right, well, you're up, Turtle. Who you got here?
Yeah, Shannon was my guy. I'll homer it up and take Jameer Young. Just because I know he's going to have a huge role. He's going to put up good counting stats. I'm not sure how good he's actually going to be in terms of winning basketball games, but he's my guy.
Yeah, so I have 3 listed. Those are my top 2. I had Young, it's a Matha kid, DC area, coming home. Love that. The third guy I had was Matt Mayer, also coming to Illinois. Huge fantasy points per minute when he's been on the court, but just hasn't really been able to crack that like 22, 24 a game. So hopefully that rises and we're able to use him a lot. Last thing here, breakout guys. Gavin already gave his, so we'll let him go first and remind everyone who he's got here.
Yeah, Julian Reese playing that key center spot, being able to bang down low with some of these centers, being able to, at least we saw in some short spurts, step out. He's got a pretty good tool set. I think he's a former top 50 guy, good pedigree. Just got kind of buried behind the GOAT Wahab himself. So I think walks into 28 to 30 minutes, barring, foul trouble. It was certainly an issue for him, which, he could crash and burn if that's a problem. But love the spot and the role that he's got for this team. That's probably not going to play shit for bench guys.
Yeah, same. I had him first on my list. Turtle, we'll let you go second here.
Going with Terrence Williams, Michigan, 6'7", junior, do it all type, glue guy, breakout.
Yeah, I have two guys here. Since I'm the host, I can go twice. I've got Zed Key, who we talk about a lot. If he ends up playing 25 plus, I think he's going to have a monster year. And then Coleman Hawkins for Illinois. I mean, you can tell that we like Illinois. They're all over our segments here at the end. So that is the Big Ten. Pretty greasy conference overall, but I think there's some teams with some upside. We talked about it all. And look, right at 90 minutes, not too bad. Thanks again, Gavin, for joining. Turtle, thanks. Do you want to plug anything for RG for the season?
No, just check us out. Doing college basketball projections. Project every single slate on DraftKings and FanDuel all season long. Even these terrible early season slates during football season. Got you covered. Yeah. So between your stuff and projections, that's what you need, right?
Yeah. Gavin, imagine.
Zach Edey, National Player of the Year. Sign off. Mic drop.